Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of the Citizen Sports Weekly. As you can see, I'm in Chris's chair. He's on vacation.
And I'm not Chris.
And you're not Chris. Chris is on vacation this week. He'll be watching us from home and probably laughing at us. If anything, our ratings will increase because he'll actually be watching it this week. So, we hope anyway. So this is Jonathan. He's our Skinny Atlas Journal editor and resident NASCAR guru.
Oh, guru.
Yeah.
I've been promoted. No. Yeah, I guess we'll start talking about, what I want to talk about this week was, we're a little past halfway towards the chase for the championship.
Yeah.
And as you know, there's a little bit different format this year. It's not just the top 12 in points make it in, or I guess it was top 10 plus the 2 wild cards. This year, it's wins that get you win.
Yeah.
And right now, there's 10 different winners. There's 16 spots. But if there's not 16 different winners, it does go based on points. And just looking at the rundown, currently drivers that don't have wins but make the chase are in order of points: Matt Kenseth, Kyle Larson, Ryan Newman, Paul Menard, Clint Boyer, and Greg Biffle. So a couple of surprises there.
Kyle Larson, huh?
Kyle Larson. I know it's one of your favorites.
Yeah.
But I'm here to give you a list of. I think we're going to see 16 different winners.
Wow.
Time's kind of running out for that. I thought we might see one at Michigan, but Jimmy Johnson got his 3rd win. So I'm going to give you a list of the 6 drivers I think are going to get that win and get the
Nice.
punch their ticket into the chase.
Well, let's educate these people.
Yeah, well, leading off with Matt Kenseth. I mean,
Yeah.
I know when Jimmy Johnson, he took 12, 13 races before he got his first win, and everyone was talking about, well, it's not if he's going to win, it's when he's going to win. That's certainly the case with Matt Kenseth too. I mean, he's a champion. He's he knows how to win races. I think
He's the reason we have.
He's the reason we have the chase.
Yeah.
That is correct. I mean, last year he was on fire. First season when Joe was racing, win 7 races. I think 5 of them even before the chase. So again, it's not if Matt Kenseth is going to win it; it's when. Another driver, I thought he was going to do it last weekend. I mean, I thought going into the weekend he would do it, but he didn't perform as well. Was Greg Biffle. I think Greg Biffle isn't a champion caliber driver. I think he can be, but he's definitely a guy who you can usually depend on to get a win or 2 a year. I think he'll do it. Casey Kane, another example.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, a little factoid: Casey Kane is the only driver who was in last year's chase that so far isn't qualified for this year's chase, isn't it?
Wow.
I think he's kind of struggled this season. It seems like he's kind of that missing link of an otherwise strong Hendrick Motorsports season. But I still think he'll win a race or two, punch his ticket into the chase.
Yeah, he's had some inconsistent races. Like you'll see him in the top 10.
Yeah.
And then other weeks he just fades.
Yeah,
He's not involved.
kind of in the same situation with Greg Biffle. But right now, as I point out, Greg Biffle does have a spot in the chase if we were to start over right now. The 4th driver, I kind of had a toss-up between Ryan Newman or Clint Boyer. I think Newman's in a new ride this year, but still doing solid. Boyer didn't win last year, actually. Newman did get a win, and they were both in the chase last year. Both, right now, would make it. But I think you can count on one of them getting a win.
Yeah.
Maybe even Sonoma coming up this weekend could be a good track for either of them, really.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last 2 are a little bit surprises. Maybe not so much surprises. Kyle Larson, I mean, probably the most talented rookie driver we've seen. Well, really the whole rookie class this year is probably the most talented we've seen since, I would say, when Denny Hamlin and Clint Boyer were rookies. And
You've got Austin Dillon.
Landon Castle, yeah, and I think Landon Castle and Justin Allgaier are guys that I know we've talked about that maybe don't have the best equipment right now, but give them 3 years to kind of show themselves. And let's say it's going to happen someday. Jeff Gordon retires, and maybe one of those guys gets a spot, or something opens up.
These are your future Sprint Cup stars.
Exactly,
really.
and Kyle Larson, I mean, future star. He already is a star.
Yeah.
You're going to see him get a win this year. Maybe before the chase punches ticket in. It's just one of those things. I've been watching him, and week in, week out, he's getting top 10s, top 5s. I think when you'll see him win is after we get to Daytona, then you start going to tracks the second time around. And he gets a better feel of the car and what he needs to do. It's just one of those deals where he just needs luck, really. I mean, just have that to go from running it in the top 5 to winning the race, I think. And then the last driver is a little bit of a surprise too, because he's never been in the chase, but he has won. Marcus Ambrose.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to call it right now. Maybe this weekend at Sonoma, maybe later on at Watkins Glen. I think you're going to see Marcus Ambrose get a win this year on the road course.
Yeah, he's one of the best.
He's won it before. He's won
Yeah.
twice at Watkins Glen. He's won quite a few nationwide races on the road courses at different tracks. I think you'll see him do it. And again, that's kind of a driver sort of like Kyle Larson. I mean, he drives for Richard Petty Motorsports. Certainly not a top tier team as much as I love Richard Petty. But maybe being in the chase will kind of elevate them to get that status. Just you think of just a higher standings. That's more money, more sponsorships looking at you. So I think he'll do it.
Yeah. Ambrose is an interesting one because of course, as you mentioned, with the way that the chase works, basically you win and you're in.
I've been thinking about that a lot this season. You just think of the guys that if they had this season or had this format in past seasons, the guys that would have been in the chase. It's kind of interesting to look at it. I mean. Juan Montoya, again, Ambrose would have already been in. Montoya was in once, but he would have been a couple other times, and even David Reagan.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, speaking of David Reagan, I want to bring up that I did list a couple of surprise guys that I think could be in the chase. I think you're going to see some surprise winners, because again, I mean, you win a race and you are in the chase, and I think there's a couple guys that maybe might take a gamble, stretching their fuel tank or taking 2 tires in the pit stop just to get that track position. I think we haven't quite seen it yet, but I think you're going to see somewhere down the road, once or twice, a guy that says, let's say it's 25 to go and I got 23 laps worth of fuel, I'm going to go for it.
Yeah.
Because
it happens.
It does. It happens before, but again, I mean...
Happens a couple of times a year, really.
It does, and again, it's not just winning a race, it's winning a race and getting into the chase.
Because I believe it was Martin Truex Jr. who won Sonoma.
He won Sonoma last year. He could do it again. Again, that's a guy who I thought would do better this year with Furniture Road Racing. Hasn't done too bad. I mean, compared to they started the season last in Daytona 500, and they've progressed since then. That could be a guy. He's out of the chase right now, but I think get a win at Sonoma and he's in. Yeah, but I think Paul Menard's another one. He's been running pretty solid this year.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially in the last about month or so.
Yeah, he's been really coming on, and that's a guy that again he's in the chase right now, but doesn't have a win. A win would solidify his spot. I think Jamie McMurray's another one. Mm-hmm. I mean, he came out of the box in the All-Star race, and again that was pit strategy where he just took a gamble, got up front, and stayed up front. And I think you could see him do that again. We do have one more plate track before the chase starts at Daytona.
Yep.
That's always a wild card. I think you could see someone. I mean, with Denny Hamlin, not a surprise, but sort of a surprise because it was his first time winning on a plate track when he won at Talladega. I think you could see something like that happen. Even and McMurray's won at Daytona before.
Yeah.
Kind of a question mark is Tony Stewart.
Yeah.
Haven't heard much from him this season. I think
he's
still coming off that broken leg and a horrible broken leg. I'd like to think he could be in the chase, but he hasn't performed as well this year. But maybe that's a guy who he knows how to win races. Of course, he knows how to win races pretty much anywhere: road course, plate track, short track, long track. That could be a guy maybe takes a chance and gets out front and wins a race. And
don't sleep on Tony Stewart.
What's that?
Don't sleep on Tony Stewart.
No, I think
he can pull it out at any time.
he could.
Yeah.
Another interesting note, as we're talking about Kyle Larson again, we haven't seen a first-time winner in the Cup Series since 2011, and that year there were 5.
Wow.
Trevor Bayne in the Daytona 500.
Right. Yeah.
Regan Smith from Cato, New York. We got to throw his name out there.
Cato native.
David Reagan again. He won at Daytona that year when he won the night race.
Oh right.
Menard and Ambrose got their first wins that year. So I think we're due. Yeah. I think Kyle Larson's leading that list for sure.
3 years we've gone without one.
Yeah. And let's talk about Regan Smith for a second, leading the nationwide series points.
Cato's own. On top of the nationwide
I
series.
don't know if a NASCAR championship travels like the Stanley Cup does, but maybe we'll have a little party if he wins the championship.
That would be neat. Yeah, he's obviously he had that experience in the Sprint Cup Series, and then kind of took a step back and decided to focus on the nationwide stuff, and it's worked out for him.
It has worked out. I mean, he's running JR Motorsports, which I would say is definitely one of the top. I don't know if the top, but they're leading the points, so let's call them the top nationwide team out there. And again, we talk about guys like Justin Allgaier, where down the road they prove themselves, get a ride, I think you could see Regan Smith back in the Cup Series someday.
Yeah, it'd be great to see him. He had in the past few years, even when he was racing part-time in the Sprint Cup Series, he had some good showings at Daytona. Had some other good races. Had that victory that you mentioned before a few years ago. So,
and again, I don't mean to cut you off, but again, that was a race where I think he kind of hung around the top 10 all night. Yeah. Last pit stop game, he took 2 tires, beat him off pit road, won the race. That would have put him in the chase. Yeah. So that's just something to think about. I think you're going to see something like that. Yeah. A couple times this year,
Yeah. Why don't we close on this note? Because we've had this conversation, a lot, but. Obviously this is a newer system this year. They've been kind of tinkering with this whole chase concept since, as we mentioned before, the whole Kenseth thing where, he was just a master of consistency and won the championship. But how do you, what's your take on this system? In what ways do you think it works and what ways do you think it needs to be fixed?
That's a very interesting question because, me, I'm kind of an old school NASCAR fan. I know I'm young, but I'm kind of an old school fan. I like the idea of a 36 race championship. I know that's kind of a little less exciting. It's resulted in guys winning, clinching the championship before the last race of the season. But I feel like if you run all 36 races, you win the championship based on that. This year it's going to be down to the last race, which sure it'll be exciting. But like I said, I'm just kind of prefer that. You run from Daytona to Homestead and you get points based on all of that. Although I admit the chase is provided some excitement. It's interesting, keeps fans tuned in, and it's definitely affects the strategy. We talked earlier in the week about Brad Keselowski's not his win, but what could have been a win at Pocono. Yeah, and he had a win already. He won at Las Vegas. If he hadn't had a win, as we talked about, and he had that trash in the grill, I would have guessed he would just pushed it, and if the motor blew, it blew, but at least he tried. It didn't, and he finished second, but if he doesn't have a win, I think he would have just pushed it. But again, speaking of that Vegas race, that was a race where Dale Jr. ran out of fuel. He had a win already. He says, all right, I'm in the chase, and I'm just going to go and see if I can get another win. And it didn't work out for him, but I think if you do have a win, you can kind of take those chances. Yeah. Yeah, it's and if you don't have wins, you take chances to get wins. So it's interesting. And I think between that and the new design of the car, we've seen some great racing this year. And,
this year, I've been watching NASCAR for a long time, but especially in the last maybe 7 or 8 years, I've really started to watch more of it. Sure. And seeing how the racing is this year compared to past years. Any given week, you have a different winner, as we've seen.
Absolutely, yeah. And we started out with, like I said, we have 10 different winners already, which is, it's pretty good. I think we're not even halfway through the season. Yeah. So I think, even if we don't see 16 before the chase starts, you'll definitely see that number, I think, through the whole season.
Great. Well, we'll wrap it up there. Of course, Chris will be back next week for the Citizen Sports Weekly. Jonathan, thanks for coming.
Having me.
Thanks for tagging along this week. I'll actually be gone in a couple of weeks here. I'll be on vacation, and
so maybe I'll make a reappearance.
Maybe you'll make a reappearance. So Chris will be hosting that show, of course, and maybe it'll be Jonathan. Maybe it'll be Jonathan and someone else. Who knows? Yeah. But maybe we'll have our first 3-man or 3-person show.
There you go.
So, but Jonathan, it was great to have you on, and Thanks for watching there, in the comforts of your own home or on your phone or wherever you're doing this. And again, we'll be back next week with another edition of the Citizen Sports Weekly. Thanks again.
Thanks.